Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyrone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tyrone, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yep.
So, this challenge for the landlords in terms of how how they would account for this. These are kinds of things that are getting down into the weeds. They're important because it's the execution part, right? Some of I think, to some extent, it's going to be really, I think if we're trying to find the one program that solves this issue, that's a losing proposition, because I think we're going to need multiple programs to address different issues, right, for landlords. And so, I think it might be helpful for us to say at some point, this is what we want to move forward with, and we test it in the market and see what happens and learn. And if we make mistakes, we learn from our mistakes and we pivot, right? But I think this waiting for all the information we need to make a decision, we're going to miss the window of opportunity. And it's going to get worse and worse. Pushing out the moratorium is a good thing, but it's only good if we're working on a solution that's going to address the big issue once the moratorium is lifted. So that's one thing. The second thing is, when I think about Fresh Start and I think about Rent Guarantee, I think of them in some aspect as two different programs. And I'm wondering if we can start with Fresh Start, and then as we get closer to the eviction moratorium being lifted, we can start to put some time towards thinking about how we would loop in the Rent Guarantee program. If we think that who we're trying to serve through that are people who would end up being evicted or lose their housing, and we would want to rapidly rehouse them again.
Well, yeah, there's pros and cons. Pros are we can get something to the market faster than having to think through two programs. Cons are the window of opportunity to get somebody to agree to the entire program will have passed, and so it'll be a secondary pitch to say, we've already got you on board to, and we've already sent your ledgers over, and now we're going to ask you to participate in something else, because in 60 days they're going to be evictions, and we want you to accept these people. It's just they have less of an interest to review that proposition at that point, because they've been made whole already. But not saying it's not possible. It's just pros and cons. But I'm definitely 100% open to that strategy as well, because that does get something out fast.
Yeah. So my recommendation when I first got on was that this was a two-prong thing. Can we just start with Fresh Start? Can we just start with that and then move forward? What is the intention of the Fresh Start program? And what does a person actually need? If you're going to call it this, what do they actually need to have a fresh start?
I think the original thought was to have the back debt addressed, right? So that they can focus on the rent moving forward. And I think the other piece of Fresh Start is really, if they need help moving forward, we'd like to be able to help them with that as well. I think the challenge right now is we just, and some of this, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity in that it will help us to maybe set the guardrails for the first launch of the program, and then we can adjust it as we learn, which is, we don't know, or maybe Tyrone, maybe you do know this, like what would the average household payment look like? Do we think it's $1,500 a month, but they've been in arrears for 7 months? So it's 50% of that times 7, and then they might need help for 3 months moving forward. Is that kind of the typical scenario you think we'll be serving?
The best data is going to be for the one good thing is that we actually have data on that now, and it'll probably come from Andy that's in the group, because they have just put out a ton of money, and they know the average amount. So he's going to be able to tell you at this point in time what the average amount of debt looked like per household. So it's not a guesstimation anymore, which is great.
Okay.
And he also said that he spoke to other organizations, and they were almost at the exact same. So the average has actually, come together.
And so that would address the arrears. Is that right?
Yeah, that exactly. That would help us to understand the arrears.
Is 50% the number?
Huh?
Is 50% the number?
That was the number that was proposed in Fresh Start. Yes.
The number that the group wants to go with, to stay with.
After the the state just released an 80% number, I'm not sure 50% is going to be realistic to get people to be okay with. So that's something that we would have to readdress. We'd have to figure out what is the amount that we can get landlords to get on board with.
It sounds like 80%. It sounds like that's the number that has been thrown out of there.
So the only reason why I would hesitate using 80% is the parameters around the 80% are pretty stringent, as I said in the email update that we shared based on our conversation, right? Unless these things get negotiated and changed in the process of special session, my understanding is it's currently written, although I think Don saw something that may be current in terms of the bill language in front of the legislature today, and I haven't had a chance to look at it. But their issues were that they had to have 100% of their tenants signed up for the program, that they had to have 100% of the declarations available, and that this was a competitive bid process, which means if they secured that and they agreed that they wouldn't impose any evictions for X number of months, if they weren't approved for the funding, they had to abide by the non-eviction component. And they felt like that put them at risk because they weren't getting any of the funding to help their tenants. And yet they still had to not evict their tenants for X number of months. So I share that just to say that there may be some interest in a 50% program that doesn't have the same stringent requirements on their part, like it doesn't have to be 100% of their tenants. Tyrone, what do you think about that 100% number and competitive application?
I spoke to the same two management companies that they did talk about that, the 100% part. And even before that was released, I had brought it to this group saying that they had an issue with not being able to, they had bad actors that they knew were bad actors, people who they knew went to work every single day.
Right.
And they haven't made one payment in 8 months. And that really hurt the average. Yeah. So they were like, I don't want these huge, because I think the guy I spoke to, he said out of all of the debt, 9% of the renters that in the debt pool account for 80% of the debt. So he wanted to take those bad actors out because it really changes the amount of money they get dramatically if you take out the high ones. I see. And he felt like, because he was like, I know they go to work every day. I literally seen them go to work. And so in the model that was released by the state, it did have a solution for that, but it was weak in their opinion, because it said that that all these people had to sign this, the affidavit or whatever, stating that they have been impacted. But he was like, so is there anybody checking on this? Is there any proof? And we're like, it doesn't look like it. It looks like if they sign a piece of paper, they're good to go, but it, under the case that if they were lying, but he was like, but is there any follow-up? And we're like, what, thousands of people, what do you think? Odds are no.
When the person wins, they get their money. When they get their money, why are they asking all these questions? When they get their money?
they felt some of these people have really abused these owners.
But how do they actually
like that's what they feel like?
How do they actually know though?
Because they said it's assumptions for sure. They're not part of that person's life.
Racism is real too. So who knows? That person can get up and go take care of their mother like I had to do. So, you know,
if
they're getting paid, they're getting paid. So
right. So I mean, it's kind of addressed in the fact that in that sense, but I mean, so we could still, you know, they say you have to sign this saying that this is what you've experienced.
Right.
But you know, that they, if you look at I bet you the same thing is at most companies. They might have, you know, 1,000 people who are behind, and 100 people make up 90% of the debt over the 1,000 people, you know, because they're the big people. So I mean, but at the end of the day, like Kyoshi said, I bet you they still sign on dotted line if the money is guaranteed.
Yeah,
because those back people aren't gonna get that money anyway.
Yeah, just get.
But they want the ability to evict. That's the problem.
Here you go. So
they want to say honest to God, Dan, one of the owners, he said, I would literally rather evict than take and then add some of these people to, even if they lost money, then add some of these people to the ledger to get paid. So the 100% piece, they're gonna swallow a little bit of pride to walk into a place where they feel as if this person hasn't missed a beat, or at least not missed enough for them to make some attempt. Because he said these people $0.00, right? So
and that's what white people did for hundreds of years. They paid $0.00. So this is reparations. You have the right to reparations. Let's go in your pocketbook and look in your generations and see what free money you got. All right. Like I don't want to root this program, and like I'm glad that we're getting the feedback from them, but I don't want to stay there. Like I want to stay. Yes, there's probably a small percentage of people getting over on the system, and the system got over on us. Now, so that being said, this program for those who do want to evict, right? Maybe they be willing to give a no-cause eviction, and then they are eligible for the One Act scholarship fee. Because a no-cause, if they be willing to give a no-cause, so let's say we pay this person's back rent, but you still want to evict them. They get a no-cause eviction, so it's not going to hurt their record, and then they become eligible for the One App scholarship because now they need a scholarship because they have to move. What do you think about that?
That's a way to tie it together for sure.
Say that again. Say that again, Kyoshi.
So if the landlord agrees, okay, we'll take 80% or whatever number we add for them, but I don't want this person here. I feel like this person has been getting over on the system the whole time. Then in order to take this money, you have to agree to give a no-cause eviction. So it says based off of these behaviors or whatever. But I need to see some type of documentation. It can't just be off of assumptions. It has to be
right. It's hard. That's the part that's impossible.
Yeah, right. It has to be some type of documentation that if somebody's going to evict, that you know they broke the lease, you know, they dogs were doing something. Like there had to be something. You know, it can't just be like, because if I throw a racial lens on it, what am I going to see? You know, I could be mistaken, but I don't want people to use this as an opportunity to get their money back and also get rid of Black and brown people. So if they have additional documentation that says not only did this person not pay, but they've also violated their rental agreement and multiple and so therefore we like to evict them, then that's when we say, okay, if you want this money, then you have to agree to give them a no-cause eviction. They become eligible for the One App scholarship fee or the One App scholarship, and then we help that person transition into a better place.
Yeah, it's like, it's either you don't get to evict, or if you do want the right to evict, you have to accept the guarantee. You know, you have to allow people to be able to relocate easily.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a way to, that's a really good way to not force somebody. If you like, hey, take the money and be happy, or take partially the money, but have to accept the guarantee because you're putting people out and we need to be able to rapidly rehouse them. That could be a really strong proposal.
So Tyrone, help me understand. So if a landlord says, okay, I'm going to do a no-cause eviction and take the guarantee, the guarantee the value of the guarantee, because that money goes into the landlord's pocket, but the value to the tenant is there's nothing on their record and they have 30 days to find a new place?
Yeah, it's nothing on the record, and hopefully there's a pool of management companies that that we can show on a list of guarantees. That's our goal, to have
at this point in the end of the year. There's not a whole lot that's cooking right now. So
Hello.
What was that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Welcome, Cameron.
He's on
mute.
Hey,
Cameron. Oh,
hey,
yeah.
Cameron.
So, it's basically saying be a part, join this list of management companies that we can rapidly rehouse people in.
Okay.
It's kind of like a list.
50 and 80%. 50 and 80. If you decide to evict, then you only get 50%, and it has to be forgiven and a no cause. But if the person gets to stay there, then we'll give you 80% and it's forgiven. And then how do we bring in the forward rent? Like 3 months. Like you have to forgive the 80%, and then we will send you a check for the next 3 months. That means for the fresh start, you need to have systems ready to wrap around these people to make sure that they're gonna be able to pay their rent from their, beyond. If this is a real fresh start. Otherwise, we need to change the name of the program and call it semi-fresh. What do you think about that? Because we got to have money to send them someplace else. You can't just be like, I'm gonna get some money that you would have never got, and the person is still evicted. You know what I mean? But if you let them stay, we'll give you more money, and we can get funds for the 3-month guarantee, which that's what we bring in our corporate partners, our philanthropist partners, whoever's gonna come in, and we got to write a check every month. You'll get a forward check every month for 3 months. And then whoever the community-based organizations will have 3 months to wrap around those community members. I
like that. The ones that you want to kick out, you can still kick out, but we don't want them kicked out with a shit ton of debt. So we'll give you 50%, and then the rest of the money goes to helping them for their relocation. And using the guarantee as an instant access to housing tool. That's a proposal we could definitely bring to the group too. I like, because then it's like you still get to get this person out of your unit, but you don't get to make it to where they have this terrible amount of debt on their record. It's like they still get to walk away. You get to get your unit back, and this person is able to get relocated.
Yep.
Yeah. That's one where I think they would be happy with that, because he literally said, I would take no money if I could put some of these people out. So they still get to put them out, but the renter does get to walk away with, something.
And Tyrone, is that like wanting to put them out with nothing just because like they feel as though they've been not paying rent? Like, is that like for the last 8 months? Is that, I mean, like,
yeah,
yeah, or that's what they're claiming. It doesn't much matter. It just continues. Like that's a okay.
Right. We would have to think through it. It's just a proposal to have on the table for how it works, because there are going to be some, once we dive into it, we may find that option is not really going to be able to execute, but it is one.
Yeah. And we also don't want it to become a scapegoat, right?
Yeah. We don't. We don't want a ton of, but I mean, at the same time, if you build the program right, I mean, 50% versus 80%, you really must not want this person. Like, it really kind of will cut out some of the, scapegoat people. It's like, I'm going to give up a ton of money because this person needs to be out of my property.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to have some documentation of something. It can't just be like, I think, or I feel, because racism is real. And we could put that in there. The racial bias is real. Like, we could just be totally transparent. People have racial biases. You don't know. There's all types of white people getting up and doing stuff and ain't going to work, and like going to work and acting like they ain't got money either. So, but who are you looking at? Who's standing out to you? Who are you paying attention to? Whew. Do we have a plan? Is there more?
Yeah, I mean, these are great ideas to put. I want to,
yeah.
I don't want to overstep, but if it's okay, I would like to draft the fresh start that we as if we were if it was the final version and we were going to be pushing it around, and that will give us something that says yes, no, tweak, yes, no, and then once we have something that we're like, we feel confident around, we can push it out to partners and friendlies, let them give us feedback. Well, more of if they'll ask us questions about how something would work, and those questions, when we think through them, we can add those comments to the document as well. When we say this is what it is, we would have the bullet points of how it worked, A, B, C, D, these scenarios. And then we can go public with it. Put something, a fresh start com or whatever, and just throw up a really easy website that would take very little time, because they literally get thrown together in within a week. And then we have something that we can share and start to try to get traction behind. Because once you start putting logos at the bottom of the site is when people start, if you can get, this property management company, this tenant group, association, this organization to start jumping on board, you start to get more and more, closer to getting the funds that you're asking for. And there's some really influential management companies out here because they manage, 10,000+ doors. So, getting a Greystar on board or a Guardian on board and having them sign off saying, we would participate in this. You start making traction. Because I don't know, that's how, at least from my perspective, that's how the other programs that raised that capital, that's how they started. They did their work. They went out and put it in front of a ton of people until they got enough people to get on board with it, that it was a landslide to happen. So
how do we set the tenant up to be successful? So if a person doesn't have a job and they really didn't have the money to pay the rent, and the landlord still doesn't want them to be there and they have to move, what do we do?
So you're saying if in the example that we say you can force a person to leave and only take 50%, and then basically the rest of the funds go to help relocate this renter. In that scenario, if the renter said, I don't want to move, I mean, technically they'd be evicted. There'd be no options for them. Just like
so if they don't have a job. So let's say if I do want to move, I hate where I live. The place I lived before had needles every time I walked my daughter to the doggone bus stop. So I don't want to live there anymore. I didn't have a job. I want a job, but I don't have childcare because of COVID. I don't want to get sick, and I take care of my mom. And my mom, my mom is elderly, so I can't be. I need a job. What do I do?
If you're out of work, you don't qualify anywhere. Like even a guarantee won't get you a job. I mean, get you a place if you are out of work. If COVID has you out of work, staying in where you are is really the only option, because you can't be evicted. But once you're out, there is no way to get back in. There's I mean, unless we said, that the other 40% or, the other 30% went to forward rent or something like that. But even a management company's not going to take you if you only have the month rent that you got in with.
That means we have 3 months. So let's say if they forgave it 80%, but it's really kind of like at 110% kind of, where it's like you forgive it 80%, but we'll actually pay you for like that. And so like the 80% would just wipe it clean, but maybe we would pay you like a couple months. We would need some time with the person. We need time with the person to be able to give them, first of all, ask them if they even want to participate. Because if they don't want to get a job, or they're in what if somebody's supposed to be on disability, but they just don't know how to fill out the paperwork? How are we going to make sure that people have the resources or connected to the resources an amount of time before they have to move.
Yeah. Forcing somebody to move is probably not going to be, that's going to be such a huge, allowing for people to move during this period is going to be, or be evicted. I don't see just from this brief conversation, there's going to be so many scenarios where we would have to account for, because we're forcing this person out of their home during the pandemic, or we're allowing that to happen. It may not be feasible for us to put a solution around all of that. And it's not fair to say, fend for yourself. It's just not the right position to put people into during this time. So, I don't know. We would think through that. But before this call is over, I would love to be able to just say, next steps, Tyrone Poole, draft a fresh start proposal, and we will pretend act like it's done, and then we will just tear it apart on the next
next meeting.
Yes. And then after that meeting, we will put it out to our network, and then we will let it evolve, because I just want to get something that we are tweaking regularly out. And because we got to go from the brainstorming to stage
on paper.
Yes.
So a couple of additional thoughts. One is, Kiyoshi, to your question about how do we help people who have no income or maybe don't want to help themselves, right? I mean, traditionally, we would reach out to 211 and to our nonprofit partners who are culturally focused and responsive, and assign like a caseworker to a family and help them kind of figure out, navigate what resources are available to them, or get them into programs in order to help them be more resilient so that they can do that moving forward. So that's one thing, but to your point, that takes time, right? And so, honestly, 3 months worth of rent isn't going to get them where they need to be. So that's definitely something we need to think about. And then what I really like about what we've been able to put together in such a short period of time is the 80 and the 50 are not either or, they're kind of both and in terms of giving the landlords or the property managers an option, right? And Tyrone, based on kind of, and Kiyoshi, how we kind of worded this and thought about the difference between the 80 and the 50%. I think that's a really great place to start. I think it's really promising. It feels logical and like it would be motivating for a landlord.
And this is the Fresh Start model. Cool. Sign case are okay.
When is the next meeting scheduled for? Do we have it calendared? I just want to know the timeline I have before by saying I'm going to try to get something really good on paper.
I'm a genie right now, and I don't want to say a master. I don't want to say that. Right now, Brown Hope funded me as a facilitator to come, so I don't really.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about, so this was one of the things, right, that Cameron was very transparent about early on in terms of Kiyoshi's involvement, was that Brown Hope was willing to do this for some period of time, and we should have a conversation about whether or not the planning grant would help cover this moving forward. So I think we just kind of need to understand, we probably need to take a look at what that cost is. And so I don't know if we should, Cameron, how would you like to have that conversation? Cameron, you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking right now or if you stepped away.
Well, I don't have to be here for you all to have the conversation. Time is it? I mean, I got 10 minutes left if you want to use this time yourself and talk about what I can do.
Well, I just wanted to know, so is that saying we just don't have another meeting scheduled right now?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So we can
Yeah, we'll
figure
have to-
that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can figure it out. I don't want to keep holding everybody.
Okay. I mean, it is a planning grant, so like it's for planning. But then again, if you have another facilitator in mind who you feel like would be a better fit, I also understand that too. Like, I just want, what y'all are doing are amazing. Everyone does things differently. I know I function differently than other facilitators, so I don't take things personal. But this is, I mean, this is pretty cool too. Like, you know, so like.
Right.
But Joshi, this is not about anything about you personally. We just haven't thought about the budget for the planning grant and how the funds would be used. So it's more that we were just not prepared to have the conversation.
Well, I most definitely have been working in abundance, and just that's what you're seeing is my self-work coming through of just wanting things to be successful and wanting people to have whatever they need to be successful. That's what I want.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But this is pretty cool. I'm excited to see the final plan, Tyrone, to send out. And I'm a tenant, because as a tenant, from a tenant perspective, let me look here. So I'm at the house with my kids, with Empress, and I don't have a job because I was taking care of my mom. And I'm not a facilitator. I don't have an MBA. And so I was working someplace and now I can't work anymore. I do want to work. I do want to work, but it seems like some of, my skills, I mean, I have skills that I feel like I don't have that I might have, but I might need some support. So I love the caseworker. What does that look like? Is it a caseworker through the program? Is it our community-based organization? Are we just saying, okay? And how many people do you actually want to serve?
So that's part of that, right? That's a function of what do we think that kind of average, even though no one's average, what that average picture might look like and how much money we raise. We probably need to start with, this is how many we'd like to serve as maybe a proof of concept. This is how much we think we might spend on average per household, multiply the two together and come up with so this is how much we think we need to be fundraising for, including, right, any overhead costs or administrative fees or, things like that, because certainly, there's a very real cost to anybody who participates in the program, meaning is supporting the program.
As a pilot program, just how many people do you want to serve? Just on a small level, just as a pilot.
I don't know. I guess the question is, what is a meaningful number, right?
Oh gosh.
Let me try and do some quick math. 1, 2, 3, 6, 12, 10,000 times 100. So if we thought the average payment per household for arrears and forward rent was going to be $10,000, it would cost us $1 million to service, and that's just pure rent, not administrative fees for any partners, right? We would be able to serve 100 households at $10,000 each, and that would cost $1 million.
Yeah, that's another thing we should think about, because I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that 9% of the portfolio makes up 80% of the debt. You know how much money, how many people we could help if we didn't cover that 9%? We could help like 1 million more people if we took out the ones who haven't paid a penny in
or
the last
abusing the system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's hard. It's actually
there's just no way to know.
Yeah.
Reparations too. Reparations. Let's not act like, come on, you guys. I don't know who those people are. Come on now. Let's not forget.
Tyrone, it's hard for me to imagine, and I'm not saying that it's a falsehood. I'm just saying I don't have enough information to really understand it. It's hard for me to imagine that this 9% of the households comprises 80% of the debt or 90% of the arrears debt. I mean, that is such a huge number.
It is. I was blown away. And he was like, I can give you all the statistics. I can give you all of our units. Like, I can show you how it is. You got $1,100 here. You got $900 here. And then you got, $11,000 here, and then you got $18,000 here. Like he said, he had one, it's almost at $20,000. Okay. So, I mean, you got these bottom ones that make up so much of the overall debt. And when he broke that down to me, I was just like, and then Fortress Property Management said they haven't done done it on that level, but she was like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same.
If it was the same.
Yeah, people who just rode this wave without any,
So, I mean, one way to validate that, right? If we wanted to go down this path, and I'm not saying that's what we want to do, is really to require proof of household income for the past 60 days or something like that, so that it's current income level, not pre-COVID, right? And I don't know, I mean, that creates a little bit of onerosity, if that's a word, for the household who is already struggling and stressed, right? But that's one way to create that dividing line.
The hard thing with that is that it's hard to prove something that doesn't exist. Like, if you have a job, it's easy to prove what your income is. But if you saying you have no income, it's hard to prove that you are out of work. You know what I mean? Like, what documents would you get from somebody to prove that you are out of work?
Not until you file your taxes.
Yeah, that you could do it after taxes.
So you might have to send in your tax return. If you want to look at your tax return.
Yeah, see, that's what makes it so challenging, right? Is looking for this level of verification creates complexities. So typically I would say you never want to develop a program around the anomaly because,
right, absolutely.
Right. But if the anomaly is the majority.
right. All right.
I just say pay it. I didn't say pay it. At the Equitable Giving Circle, we didn't ask any questions. We took people at their word and we just paid it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to say. Like, if we're looking to do something like this, I would rather come up with like more stringent criteria about who we're trying to serve and to come up with like how we manage the money part, like, right. We want to be able to say like, we want to pay, like, again, like, I don't know whether we would want to do, whether we would just say like, we're going to do our pilot with X number of building managers or property managers, and then, just figure out what the spectrum is there. Or we could say we want to do it with people who are only 6 months in arrears. I mean, I just, what I'd rather do is figure out, like, rather than have the burden being on any of the
client.
Like, I just would rather figure out if like what we're looking at is a pilot, then let's figure out what the group is rather than that. I mean, and one of the things that we had talked about in previous meetings of this, like, is like, do you choose a neighborhood in Gresham? Do you do like, like what are some of like those opportunities that you're like versus some of these other pieces?
So Amanda, that's a really interesting thought. Tyrone, what if, this is a really interesting thing. Is there a way to characterize who the landlords think the abusers are? So if, for example, they think it's the people who are like 100% in arrears, right? As opposed to everybody else who has really been trying to make it work, then do we set the program parameters, to Amanda's point, to just people who are no more than 3 to 6 months in arrears as opposed to 9 months or something like that?
Right, we could, yeah. That would cap the.
Yeah, but that's the person who really needs it.
Yeah.
The people who are 9 months or behind are the ones we're supposed to be helping. They're the ones.
Well, so that's, I mean, yeah. So here's the thing, we just need to keep reminding ourselves, we don't have enough money to help everybody, right?
Mhm.
So we just need to figure out, are we going to help the people who are the most in arrears, somebody in the middle, somebody less? I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Because yeah, if you cap how far you go back, because I don't know about, because of the fact that there's no way we can determine that somebody should qualify for nothing, like without getting their paid stubs or proof.
Yeah.
So we could just set a maximum amount of funding, per household.
Yep.
So we could say we'll pay 80% of the debt, and any person that exceeds 4 months or something like that of back rent is not, it doesn't count. So we could either tell the landlords that the debt can stay on the books and they still owe it, or we could we could try to say that you need to forgive those other previous months, but they're not gonna like that. So
no, yeah.
But there's a way to make it to where they don't monopolize the entire budget because of the fact that they're so far back, Yeah.
Then that gets to Kiyoshi's point, which is it's not really a fresh start.
For everybody, right? Some people won't have a fresh start. Right.
It has to be fresh, y'all. It's got to be fresh. We got to stay with integrity of the name.
Oh, but these are really great questions and a really good discussion. Yeah. So maybe, Tyrone, you should go ahead and move forward. Thank you for the generosity of saying you would put together the first draft. Yep. And then let's just put it out to the team and see what kinds of additional questions and things we get. And maybe there will be more like thought leadership on how to address this.
Yes, please. And if we can, for me, just because my brain works, plus with the holidays, I need to know the next meeting date. Because if I don't know the next meeting date, I will push this back on my calendar over and over and over.
Do not do that.
I know.
So
I have family come, I have stuff. It's just.
Okay, so let me ask you, Tyrone, do you think you could have a draft available by next week, Tuesday?
I definitely could. If I knew if that's the next meeting day, I could have a draft ready by Tuesday. I can get it out Monday afternoon and have it ready by Tuesday.
Okay, so everybody look at your calendars. And what does 11 a.m. look like?
On Tuesday, the 22nd.
22nd.
I am free from 11:30 to 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Did anybody have a gap in there?
I do.
Oh, yeah, this is all holidays.
I'm on vacation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The 20th until the 4th.
Okay,
I can
that's
send
right.
a community member, unless you all feel like you can meet with yourselves that time.
You know what? We will try and manage ourselves as best as we can.
I do have people though. I do have people that I trust. If you do need support, that I will send, who would love to support you, who are amazing. So I just want to let you know that it is available to you. And
Amanda, go ahead, Kiyoshi.
Yeah, and I will be back on the 4th. I promised my therapist I would not work.
Okay, we will abide. Yep. Amanda, what does your schedule look like?
I'm like Tyrone. I can also do after 11:30.
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll just send something out and see how everybody responds.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, if we want to, if we can, I can set a tentative right now just to hold it. Do you want to say noon? Okay. Noon to 1:30. Does that work? Another hour and a half?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, okay. Can anybody be responsible for sending out a calendar invite?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay. All right. And then I will try to get the draft out by Sunday night.
All right. Before we head off, would y'all be open to doing an activity?
We would love to.
I would love to, Kiyoshi. I really would, but I have to go. I'm sorry. I'm 4 minutes late for my next call. I apologize. Dang it. All right. Next time, Kiyoshi. I know. Next time. I promise. Talk to you guys later.
Bye. Thanks, Tyrone.
No problem.
You want to do it with us, Kiyoshi?
I would love to. No, this is actually really cool, and I hope that you appreciate it. So last week we talked about how we like to have our feedback. And now
we like to have a what?
How we like to have our feedback.
Yes.
So how do you like your feedback when you receive feedback?
Oh, directly.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel some type of way when it's in front of a group?
Well, I mean, I'd like for somebody to say it nicely, but otherwise directly is fine.
And Amanda, you like your feedback written.
So Kiyoshi, I felt as though this was a slightly unfair question last time because the question was, how do you prefer it? And what I said is one thing I like about written feedback is that you can go back to it and you have time to digest it. But it was not that I was against and having in-person feedback. And so anyway, that was.
Yes, I most definitely, it just depends on how the feedback is delivered. Like working with my facilitators, which I would love for you to meet. I'm going to bring one of them so that you can see. But we give each other feedback all the time. Like we literally recreate facilitation while it's happening, if it needs to happen. And we just want to model what it looks like to just, oh, no, you said this, or an example of like hanging. Like somebody said, don't leave me hanging. And I'm just like, oh, hanging. Like, you know what I mean? Think about that. And then she's like, oh, shoot, I did say that, right? But before I used to be like really embarrassed if somebody would give me feedback in front of the group, especially if it was like, you know, my perfectionism would get hurt, or, you know, something I feel is in my body, I'm all embarrassed, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe this. But feedback is a gift, you know, and there really is no point in arguing with someone's perception of you, but it's a gift. So to just take it in. So I remember somebody telling me, Kiyoshi, I appreciate your pushback. Now this person didn't really like me, so it's really interesting. But I, you know, at first I thought it was like insulting, you know, it was like my birthday, I think. And she was like, we have an appreciation circle. She's like, I appreciate your feedback. And I was like, okay, or your pushback. And I was just like, all right. But that's really actually it is a beautiful gift. It's a pushback when people are afraid or when the group is going a certain way. And I had to be like, no, like, you know what I mean? But then also learning how to take that feedback of like, okay, there are different ways to put together. This is how I do it. Cindy says, I'm used to seeing it like this. Okay, well, let's look at how Cindy likes to see it. You know, like to be able to move with it instead of like, oh, you don't like my plan, Cindy? You don't like my equity lens? Are you serious? So, you know, to be able to sit in that discomfort. It's still uncomfortable for me sometimes, but then when I get grounded in my intention, it's like, no, Cindy wants this to be successful as well. So if this is what the group is needing, I need to be flexible to that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to practice giving each other feedback.
Okay.
And the way that it looks is here. Did I send you slides? Let me share. There's actually a qualities list. I shared a qualities list, and this is great. Use it with your staff. It's wonderful. Sorry, this little, here we go. Oh, Karen said bye.
I think he was saying that.
Okay, I didn't see any of that. So that's the link to the slide. And here's a qualities list of like qualities that we see in each other. Sometimes I notice that when giving people, I'd be like, oh, you know, Amanda, you did such a great job. Thank you so much. You're just wonderful, right? But Amanda, what am I congratulating you for? What did you actually do?
My work? I don't know.
Right. But if I was like, you know what, Amanda, I just want to appreciate you because in that presentation, you kept the community like so engaged. Like when the group tried to move this way, you moved this way. You know, you stood in your integrity. When you got feedback, you stayed in a place of curiosity. Like you really loved, you held the group. Like when I was talking to you personally. When I talked to you, your spirit is wonderful and joyous. I love the fact that we were able to joke about the $20. Like that was fun. I really love the fact that you brought it to your son and actually had a conversation about it instead of just letting it right off, you know? And I'm just wondering, like, do you feel seen in your work?
I feel seen in my work?
Yeah, you do. I wonder about that because I see you volunteering to do things. I see you taking on the survey, and you know, I'm just wondering, are people seeing you? Do you feel like you're seen for how you show up in your work?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah. And so when we're giving the feedback, when I receive the feedback, I just say thank you for the feedback. Unless somebody says something that's just kind of like, oh, what did they mean by that? And then I can say, okay, I'm gonna ask a question. But as far as like, you know, trying to argue with you or debate your perception of me, like that doesn't even make any sense. I can't change your mind. You know, I can share my perspective and maybe you can meet me, but it's your perception of myself and it's a gift. Because if you didn't care about, that's what I hope, even with the racist, white supremacists I deal with, when they tell me things, I appreciate it. You know, I appreciated the fact that this person is actually willing to be transparent about what they think instead of hiding it or being covert and stabbing me in the back. I'd rather this person, like, I prefer, this is going to sound weird, like Trump's attitude over Biden. Biden was quiet. He was very covert when he did or participate in what he did. Trump's like, yeah, I hate you. Like, I hate you. I don't like you. And now it's quiet, and that's scary to me. It's really quiet. So what you all are going to do is you're going to give each other feedback. And I kind of want to hear, but I'm actually going to send you into a room for privacy since you all actually work together. And what you're going to do is you're going to share 4 strengths that you see in each other, and then an area of growth or something that you're wondering about. So for my area of growth, most definitely would be, I wonder, you know, Kyoshi, how well do you listen? That would be an area of growth for myself. Like, you know, why do you feel like, why is it so challenging for you to take feedback? That would be feedback if I was giving it to myself, if that makes sense. And what is that rooted in? So just like coming from a place of curiosity and how each other shows up. And you just say, thank you for the feedback. That's it. And just leave it there.
Cameron is not joining us.
No. So I'm gonna send you to a room. It seems like Cameron's doing back-to-back. You have a slide full of qualities that you can see in each other. But why do you think it's important for us to have a culture of feedback?
Oh, is that for the room or you want us to answer that now?
Yes, for the group. It's for you. It's for whoever wants to answer it.
Well,
go ahead, Amanda.
Cindy. Well, I was going to say.
Go ahead, Amanda. No? Okay. All right. I think it facilitates communication. I think there's opportunity to address things and not let it fester. I think it's an opportunity to help strengthen relationships.
Yeah. Amanda, do you want to add on to that?
Well, I was also just going to say, I mean, for me, especially doing the work that we do, I think our ability to take feedback is sort of how you move to like equitable systems change. Like especially as like a culture, like a predominantly white or like white institution, right? Or like historically white institution, like the question of like how we continue to hear feedback from, in particular, the BIPOC community in terms of work is really just important, and how we're able to receive it and take the feedback is also how you continue to work.
Yeah. Am I able to receive? I'm like, Cindy didn't like my plan. I can't hear anything the city said. You know, how does that help? How does that help? If I can't receive, I'm not in a place because I haven't done my work, right? And what is it like, Amanda, when you hear somebody actually call out qualities in you that they see in you?
I mean, that's lovely, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think one of the things that we really like, I think one of the things that people just appreciate is like when they, to your point, when they feel seen and heard. So that's, I mean, even if it's that person's perception, I just think that that's a, that's a good, generally a good thing. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to send you all into a room for, let me see here. I think I'll do 6 minutes. Normally I do 2 minutes of speed. It's feedback speed dating. It's feedback speed dating. It's like, 2 minutes, but y'all know each other. So you actually can go a little bit deeper. So I'll give you 6. You'll have 3 minutes apiece.
Okay.
And the only thing you can do when you get your feedback is thank you for the feedback.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let me put you in here. And here you go. In Lakesh, before each class, they would stand up and they would read it as a sign of resistance. It's written in English and Spanish. And here's an example of how to not misappropriate. Like when you give the history about something, where it came from, who wrote it, and it's I don't like that one. Hold on, let me see here. It should be just here it is, one I use every day. Hi, Cameron.
Cameron's face.
Hey.
Hey.
What I miss?
You missed feedback.
Oh, I bet. Y'all got me in trouble. Because like I was double zooming and I was trying to mostly focus on that meeting, but I was listening to this and y'all started talking about Brown Hope and the contracting thing. And so I had muted it. And right when that happened, they were like asking me a question and I'm like, what?
Yeah. So basically, I'm sharing with them about In Lakesh and what it means. And the reason why we start off with it is that it keeps me grounded, and it's written in English and Spanish. It's not translated. And it goes, normally I will ask if there's an indigenous speaker or a native speaker to read the, Spanish part. And so you say one line and then the group repeats after you. So if you want to try it, we could try it. And that's how we can end our meeting. But it's how I start all of my meetings. I haven't done it with y'all because we're just getting to know each other. And I don't want people to be like, oh, you're in a cult. But I am in a cult. Cult culture. I am. I'm a part of a culture. And this is a part of our cult. We love each other. So I'm going to say a line and then you repeat after me. Tú eres mi otro yo.
Tú eres mi otro yo.
Tú eres mi otro yo.
You are my other me.
You are
my other me.
Si te hago daño a ti.
Si te hago daño a ti.
Am I sharing screens with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I'll make sure. If I do harm to you.
If I do harm
to you.
Me hago daño a mí mismo.
Me hago daño a mí mismo.
I do harm to myself.
I do harm to myself.
Si te amo y respeto.
Si te amo y respeto.
If I love and respect you.
If I love and respect you.
Me amo y respeto yo.
Me amo y respeto yo.
I love and respect myself.
I love and respect myself.
Yeah. So that's In Lakesh. That was the history behind it. Inspired by the Mayans, written by Luis Valdez, used by the students in Arizona who were banned to even learn about themselves through Chicano studies. They literally just won their rights about a couple years ago. So, and they stood up in front of, before every class and said it as a sign of resistance. So here is the plan. Your homework is Tyrone is supposed to, so we came up with a new plan, Cameron.
Okay.
It's a new plan. The plan looks like this, that we're going, so Fresh Start addresses back debt. Mm-hmm. If you want to kick somebody out, because I guess there's people who they feel like this person goes to work every day and they're not paying. Then the landlord only gets 50% forgiveness, and they have to give a no cause eviction, because we're going to use some of those proceeds to help that person get into the One App scholarship and get into a new place. But we want to make sure that they have an easy transition. I want to see documentation if they're going to kick them out. It can't just be like, I felt that this person is doing something, because they don't know what they're doing.
I am so sorry. I have to hop off. I'm facilitating in 1 minute where they don't have the invite. Apologies.
Thanks, Amanda. I probably missed this, but I hope you'll send me the recording. How we get to 50, like I'm kind of struggling with 50% to kick someone out.
So if they were going to kick, how they would get 50% and then also kick somebody out?
Why would we give them, I understand giving them something to prevent a for-cause eviction, but why is it 50%? That seems...
Well, I feel like, and I don't want to answer for the group, because I think that's a question that wasn't even asked. However, the person would have an eviction. They're going to get kicked out anyway.
I get that, but we're giving landlords money for kicking someone out anyways.
I think the trade-off, or the what we were asking for in return, Cameron, was that it be a no-cause eviction. So that
I agree, but still, 50% for a no-cause eviction. That's where I'm like, huh.
Oh, you're saying like, okay, I see. Like maybe we should reduce that significantly or something like that.
Or why is it 50%? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. So that's something we should talk about when Tyrone pushes this back out next week, Monday.
Do you have, and Cameron, excellent observation. Do you have a number, if a number at all, that you would put there in exchange for the no cause?
And the other part was 80, right?
Yes.
You know, I guess I'm feeling a little symmetrical, but 40%, it's like you get twice as much if you keep someone. It feels like it, at least when you pitch it to a landlord, it makes sense.
Okay. I like that.
I'll push the 30. If that's the case,
yeah.
I can say 20%. If you want to kick him out, we give you 20%. Because literally, I love the fact that you brought that. Like, why are we paying? We're literally paying them to kick somebody out. They get out with a start, though.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you might owe $11,000. People are owing $11,000 in debt.
I mean, to Cameron's point, it's easy to remember 40 and 80, right?
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. That was a really good question, Cameron. And I like your solution.
Yes. Okay. So they get no cause eviction, but it can't be based off of, I just don't like that person. Because that's where racism can come in at, in my personal opinion. They have to have some type of documentation or something that the person violated. That's what I would like to have in there, but it's totally up to the group. Cameron, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm getting texts like crazy. It's that day.
80% if they get to stay.
Cindy, how do I get your level of staff?
How do you get what?
How do I get your level of staff?
Oh, well, you step into my position. How's that?
Oh, shoot.
It took 100 years. It took 100 years, Cameron.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Bill thought, and where did never mind, we ain't gonna go there, Cindy. We ain't going there. We ain't gonna go there. So think about that. Just think about that. Think about that. So a question we still don't know is, what is the average household payment?
And actually, I think Tyrone answered part of that by saying that there would be information to help inform that, Cameron, in that Andy from Impact Northwest, he said knows like what the average arrears amount is for renters. And so depending on how far we decide we want to go back to provide support, we could probably figure out like what the average payment per household looks like, at least for the arrears, and then we would have to figure out the forward rent.
Great.
And then also as a pilot, something to think about is, so right now they came up with 4. So people who, exceeded 4 months, it's just, who are we going to include? The people who have 11,000, what if they're really in a really tough situation? Those are the people we really need to be helping, but is there going to be a cutoff at, so many months in arrears? And so that's something for the group to decide. Because I don't want to go off of a landlord's subjective, observation.
Yeah.
It's different if they have like documentation, and it has to be like from prior. It can't be like, oh, yesterday, the last week, a week after we got this notice, this person, had all these, issues or whatever. But to just think about that. But for the pilot program, a goal of serving 100 households and about 10,000 per family. And that did not include, maybe that's what it was. It was like the maximum was 10,000. So if they just owe more than that. So it might have to be either or 80% or 10,000, whichever one is greater. Or
I think we just need to kind of talk it through. And the other thing is, to the extent, right, the trade-off of helping people who have the largest amount in arrears means that we help fewer families, because that means more money goes to a single person, right? Or a single household, excuse me. And there may also be a correlation that if they have the largest amount in arrears, that means they have the hardest time making their future rent. So on both ends of that spectrum, they are consuming the most of the funding, right?
But you could do both. You might have to serve less people, but you could do both. You could allocate part of the funds for people who are, 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
It can't be before the pandemic though. I don't know if that, so from, so you could just have different tiers, allocate different funds to.
We could, And it would be interesting, I think that's one of the interesting things about running a number of like different options in parallel. One of the advantages, clearly, the disadvantages, it becomes like a little bit of a administrative complex issue, but is that you can compare data, right? Meaning what are we seeing in the way of trends in this group? What are we seeing in the way of trends in this group, and the same thing in this group? And what are we learning from that? And how do we make the program better? Anyway, just food for thought.
I think one thing I'm struggling with the folks who do not need back to March forgiveness, with there being a cap, obviously there's like, do we do first come first serve, or do you want to like do additional means testing on top of it? Because it might be someone who's like, well, this is the resource here, so I'm going to take it.
Yes.
And do we want to filter, like, how do we know folks who need less than, because like the great thing about, if you haven't paid your rent since March, we don't really have to means test you. We understand that money's not coming from somewhere. But if it's really like you just need 2 months of forgiveness, is that just because you haven't exhausted all your resources, or you really need us?
Yeah. Well, and the challenge, the issue that we talked about, Cameron, around that is, how onerous do we want to make this on the people that we're trying to serve to provide affidavits or proof of income level and financial assets and things like that, right? So I would say, I've been looking at programs that different United Ways are managing. So like in King County, right, the program they're managing is based on a lottery. It's not first come, first serve. It's based on a lottery, but even under that umbrella, there is a means test. Under that, it's like, I think it's self-certified. I don't think they're asking for like pay stubs or something like that. And I think there are some other criteria. There are some other criteria as well. Then, and it's only back rent, right? Nothing moving forward. Aloha United Way in Honolulu is only doing, they're doing $2,500 a month, period. $2,500 a month is what they're giving to families, and their means test is, I think it's 100% of AMI. It's not like, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. It goes up to 100% of AMI, whereas I think King County is like 50% of AMI.
I did
I
mine.
got so many questions.
Yeah, I did mine according to equity. So like we had those intersectionalities. So we started with, since we had COVID money, anybody who was impacted by COVID, who actually, I will say that the integrity, we sent it out, I don't know exactly how many, but we got 117 responses. And out of that, only 59 families actually were in need. Everybody was pretty honest. They were like, no, I don't need, I actually need these other things. I want a better job. I want education. I want other things. And we only, out of the 117 who applied, people were pretty honest. And so then I went by who was who COVID impacted, people who had a disability. I was looking at race. I was looking at how many children people had, how many people were in the house, and how much their income was, and then how much their rent was. I looked at all those things and kind of prioritized, you know, the people who were COVID impacted, who were single parents with kids, who didn't have a job. Like, you know, that's the people who needed the most help. I will say it is after 2:30. So yeah. So
I need to, as we say in Hawaii, hele, which means move on.
Yes. Karen, let me make sure you have the link to this document so that you can ask your questions on the document. The next meeting is next week, Tuesday at 11. I won't be there. I'm going to be on break. I'm going to take a break. And in the meantime, y'all can use that to find.
That when we're talking about you?
Yeah, you can talk about me then. Yeah, I'll be gone until the 4th. I do have other facilitators that I love and trust. If you need a facilitator, just let me know.
So Cameron, oh, I'm sorry, Kiyoshi. I was going to say, Cameron, the meeting is going to be from noon to 1:30.
Sorry about that.
Oh, damn it. Okay. I'll figure something out.
All right, y'all. I love you both. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Te amo y te respeto.
Thank you.
Si te amo y respeto. If I love and respect you, me amo y respeto yo. I love and respect myself.
Oh. Have a joyful day, y'all.
You too.
Have a great time off.
Adios.
Thank you. All right, y'all.